Councilor Perks to speak, followed by Councilor Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to begin by moving the motion that Councilor Ray asked me to take carriage of. Can I take it as read? Yeah? Okay. Since he read it himself. I think that there are two issues that have been put in front of us today as we just try to move forward with this. The first is, was there adequate public consultation? And the second is, do we need to do more research, more studies, and so on prior to doing this? Maybe I'll take them in the reverse order. One of the deputants, Mr. White, I believe it was, suggested that we spend some time researching on the TDM encyclopedia. I don't know if Mr. White's still here. That happens to be run by an acquaintance of mine, a fellow named Todd Littman. And I can tell you what Todd advocates. Todd used to be an employee of the British Columbia Ministry of Transportation, and he was let go because he kept advocating that they reduce the amount of space available to automobiles in order to reduce CO2 emissions. The evidence that you will find in the TDM encyclopedia, that you will find in the transportation literature, going back into the 70s. You can start with Towns Against Traffic by Stephen Plowden, who first came up with the evidence of what's known as the iron law of congestion, is that traffic expands to fill the space. More car space, more cars. Less car space, less cars. That was then picked up by, in the 80s by Stephen Plowden. It was then picked up also by Kenworthy and Newman in Cities and Automobile Dependence, where they actually went out and did empirical studies of 40 cities around the world. Cities like Vienna, cities like London, cities like Toronto, Canada, cities like Houston, so on and so forth. And they found that where there is more road space, the CO2 emissions per capita from transportation are higher. Where there is less road space, the CO2 emissions per capita are lower. That's an objective, real-world study comparing 40 cities around the world in terms of their transportation systems. Now, if that's not enough for you, you can go read Stuck in Traffic by Anthony Downs, or you can read the British Department of Transportation study on induced traffic, which is the more modern version of the iron law of congestion, which actually has the mathematical equations for how you figure out how many more cars you get in a congested city when you expand the space. Or if maybe you're curious what happens when you shrink the space, you can look up traffic evaporation. It's all there on Todd's website. It's also an interesting little Google to put through. You can find lots and lots and lots of academic research on traffic evaporation. Perhaps the most interesting case study is the Embarcadero Freeway. When you reduce the space available to automobiles in an urban area, what happens is people take fewer trips by automobile. They shop locally, they find daycare locally, they take public transit, they ride bicycles. Those changes happen. There is ample evidence of this. We don't need to hang some cloth over top of the one-way signs on top of the middle of Jarvis Street to discover this. We don't have to put barriers out in the middle of Jarvis Street to discover this. We don't have to waste a single can of paint to discover this. This is stuff that the professional transportation literature makes very, very clear. We're ready to go. This is a question of whether we have the courage of the convictions of a city council that has adopted a transportation strategy that says our first priority is to pedestrians, then cycling and transit, and at the end, we consider the automobile. That's council policy. We don't need to go back and revisit it. In terms of the issue of whether or not we've consulted far enough, I have to be curious about folks who've had the time to print up t-shirts, arrange to make deputations, come here and speak knowledgeably about the alternatives, make recommendations to us, and then say they haven't been consulted. Right now, here, today, we are hearing what you are saying, we are evaluating it, we are consulting with you. If you don't like what we decide, you have further options available to you. Even after the Minister of the Environment is done, if she decides not to, if we put this through and the Minister decides that she's going to accept our recommendations, You then have the opportunity to appeal to cabinet, and if you don't like that, you have an opportunity for a judicial review. You've got 4 more strikes at it. There's plenty of consultation. And no, we're not going to stop every car on Jarvis, knock on the window and ask them to roll them down, say, are you from outside the neighborhood? If not, you might not have heard we're doing an environmental assessment. That's absurd. That's not a level of consultation any government gives to any road project anywhere in the world. I wouldn't endorse it, and I don't think any member of council is being honest would either.
Thank you, Councilor Perks. Any questions of the mover of that motion? Seeing none, I have Councilor... No, you can't, and you know it. Councilor